Let's forget the glossy ads for a minute. The perfectly curated social media feeds. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see how a public fashion company really operates. And we're going to do it by looking at a document that tells the unvarnished, legally required truth about their business. So that brings up a great question. We see all the beautiful campaigns, we hear the mission statements, but how does a fashion brand like Lulus talk about itself when it's legally on the hook to tell the entire story, warts and all?
Well, the answer definitely isn't in a flashy marketing campaign or an Instagram post. Nope. It's buried in a dense, formal filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission. It's a document every public company has to put out there, and it's where the real story lives.
And that document is called the Form 10K. Honestly, you can think of it like a corporate confessional. It is the one place a company has to be brutally honest about everything. Not just what's going well, but its deepest vulnerabilities, the stuff that probably keeps its executives up at night. Okay, so let's start with the good stuff. Part 1 is what I'm calling the Lulus pitch. This is the official story the company tells the world, highlighting its vision and its strengths, all pulled straight from that filing. And here's their mission, stated loud and clear. It's all about serving Gen Z and millennial women, creating real, authentic connections, and being there for those huge life events. This is the brand promise that's supposed to drive every single thing they do. So how do they actually pull that off? This is where it gets really interesting. Lulus uses this data-heavy approach they call test, learn, and reorder. So they'll drop new styles in really small batches. Then they watch the data like a hawk to see what sells. And bam, they place huge orders for the winners. In an industry that is famous for making massive bets on trends that totally flop, this is a super clever way to minimize risk. And, does it actually work? Well, this number kind of says it all. By the end of its last fiscal year, Lulus had 2.3 million active customers. That is a massive community built on this data-first strategy. So the pitch is strong, right? A beloved brand, a smart, modern business model. But that, my friends, is only half the story. Because remember that document we talked about, the 10K, isn't just for good news. So let's move on to part 2, the reality check. This is where the company is legally required to lay out all the risks that could completely derail that beautiful pitch.
And this right here perfectly illustrates the two sides of the coin. On one hand, the pitch says they have these deep customer connections, but then you flip to the risk section, and it clarifies that their entire success hinges on perfectly predicting what those customers will want next. It just shows you how their greatest strength is directly tied to their biggest vulnerability.
And the pressure to get that right is just intense. Because as the 10K says, the competition is, it's everywhere. They're not just competing against other online shops. They're up against huge department stores, specialty retailers, and even the fast fashion giants like Shein or Zara, companies that can turn a runway look into an affordable dress at lightning speed. It is a very, very crowded space. Now, here's another major risk, this one buried in their supply chain. In a recent fiscal year, a full 50%, half of all their stuff came from just 9 suppliers. That's a huge concentration. I mean, if any one of those key relationships goes south, or if a supplier has production problems, it could seriously mess up half their business. And speaking of suppliers, a lot of them are based in China, which exposes Lulus to the total chaos of international trade politics. This timeline just shows how volatile things can get. In one recent period, tariffs on goods from China shot up to a staggering 152.5%. Then a court ruling changed the game, only for new global tariffs to be announced. Trying to manage your costs in that environment must be a massive headache. And ultimately, all of these pressures, they have a real impact on the bottom line. Despite the strong brand and millions of customers, the company has a history of losing money. As this chart from the 10K shows, they posted net losses in each of the last 3 fiscal years. So profitability is still a major, major challenge. Okay, so we've got the optimistic pitch and we've got the sober reality check. So where do they go from here? Let's move to part 3 and see how this all connects, the growth gamble. This is where we see how every single plan for the future comes with its own specific built-in risk. This table just lays it out perfectly. One plan for growth is to expand into wholesale, selling through partners like Nordstrom. But the stated risk? The whole plan could get derailed if those partnerships change or just go away. Another plan is to expand internationally. The risk there? It all hinges on their ability to handle the totally unique challenges of foreign markets. We're talking different laws, different consumer tastes, the whole shebang. So, after seeing both sides of the Lulu story, what have we really learned? This is about more than just one company. It's about a whole new way of understanding any business. It's really about learning to read between the lines.
And it is so important to understand this isn't necessarily a red flag. This duality, this tension between ambition and risk, it's not unique to Lulu's. It is the mandatory, transparent, honest conversation every single public company has to have with its investors and with us, the public.
So, the real key takeaway is this. If you want to truly understand a company, you can't just look at the marketing. You've got to find that 10K. The complete picture, the full story, is always found in that delicate balance between the company's optimistic pitch and the sober reality of the risks it's forced to admit.
And that kind of leaves us with a much bigger question, doesn't it? When you look at all these challenges, from the insane competition and supply chain risks to the unpredictable nature of global trade and trends that change in a heartbeat, it really makes you wonder, in today's world, what does it actually take for any fashion brand to not just succeed, but to truly last?